I think something like where we can start to begin with, knowing a little bit more about yourself. I've personally watched you for like several years now at this point, and I've seen snippets of your history, like who you are. I know that you took acting classes. I know that you worked in a warehouse when you were younger. How did this all come together? Like, how did Josh Strife Hayes come to be?
So it's been an interesting life. Yes, I did take acting classes. I actually wanted to be an actor since I was a little kid, since I was 7 or 8 years old, sitting down in front of the TV with a VCR, watching GoldenEye or Tomorrow Never Dies repeatedly, and then saying to my mom, I want to do that. And she looked at me because they were James Bond films. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. You want to serve your country. You want to be an MI5. I'm like, no, you misunderstand, mother. I want to be Pierce Brosnan. That's what wants to happen. But I wanted to be an actor, performer, and entertainer all the time. And I love that. And I've pretty much followed my entire life going through that. I did indeed work in a warehouse moving boxes. I was a mechanic on a go-kart track. I was a martial arts instructor. Then I worked as a combat mechanic on a paintball field where I would fix all the guns. Then I started teaching acting and teaching performing. I did a bit of retail. And then I went to university to study acting. But doing all this, I would come home at the end of every day absolutely shattered, and I would sit down and do my favorite hobby, which was play video games, play online games specifically. When I was in school, in high school, I discovered old school RuneScape, just RuneScape at the time. And because it didn't require a download, you could play it on public computers, like library computers or school computers. So everyone was playing RuneScape at the time. I'd get home, boot my laptop up, play RuneScape all night. Mum hated it, but I just remember sticking on full guthans, standing at the bottom of the stronghold of security, and killing Anku incredibly inefficiently for like 8 hours every single night.
Yes.
Hell yeah,
And
that's
while
the vibe.
I loved it so much, it was terrible. And looking back at it now, I'm like, why are you doing this? This is awful. But that's the memory that I've got. And I enjoy that memory more than efficiently grinding the Nightmare Zone. But while I was playing all these online MMO games, I was getting these banner adverts on the side of my screen for what looks like terrible games. League of Angels, I think, was one of them. And there was another one, Evany. And there was always an attractive, busty woman. It's like, the king needs your help. I'm like, mate, if the king is dealing with her, the king's doing fine. Okay, I don't need to get involved with this. They stuck in my mind. I remember those. And then I thought, I'm going to combine my skills as a teacher with my skills as an actor and a video game player. And I can teach people how to play video games. So I made a guide for how to do this, how to play Dark Souls, how to play Bloodborne, how to play old school RuneScape, how to play this. And those guides did relatively well. I think one of the most successful ones was Tera, how to play Tera, how to level up in Neverwinter. But the one thing people love more than good stuff is awful stuff. I thought maybe I can combine my skills of making videos with downloading and playing these awful looking games. So I downloaded League of Angels, I downloaded Evany, and I just made reviews of these terrible MMOs, calling them worst MMO ever, which is a very Google-friendly title.
Yeah.
And
Oh
that
my,
took
that's an amazing title. I've literally got that as a note, by the way. Did you just wing that, or was there thought behind that? Were you thinking about the YouTube algorithm at the time?
I didn't expect it to be a series, but I did expect it to be Googleable. And whenever people always talk about search engine optimization, and what they think that means is putting a load of hidden tags and hidden keywords and trying to trick people into clicking on your video or your thing for any reason. Whenever I talk about search engine optimization, people say, oh yeah, if you put Fortnite in the tags of your video, it'll pop up for people that like Fortnite. And I said, yeah, but that's not the audience that I'm going for. I don't want that audience, because what will then happen is YouTube will show it to thousands of people who like Fortnite. They won't click on my video, and YouTube will think my video is lying because there's no human interaction within this tag. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep this really hyper-focused and hyper-specific. Sometimes when I'm curious, I Google, I did a couple of years ago, worst MMO ever, worst RPG ever, worst PlayStation 1 game ever, worst film ever, worst book ever, because people love knowing what the worst is. And then I found there was a YouTube channel called Team Triple Jump, and they were already doing a series called Worst Game Ever, Worst Video Game Ever, with Ben and Peter. Fantastic series. But there is nothing new in Hollywood, and every idea is just an iteration on every other idea. So I shamelessly stole the idea of calling it worst something ever, but I just specified the genre. So I went with worst MMO ever. Here's this. And that video did so well, there was a sequel to the game. So I made a sequel video, and 2 is the start of a pattern. So then I just made more and more and more and more and more, until if you Google worst MMO ever, you have to be shown my videos.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
you pretty
Brilliant,
much
bro.
took that real estate.
It took me 5 years of making content to ever even think about the algorithm, let alone Google. So I'm very impressed right now that your start was just so strong.
Yeah, how many years ago was that?
Man, I started years before. I was making little random RuneScape skits actually with my
there we
friends. But
go.
that was on a totally different channel. But everyone starts, and this is one of the advice. I did an interview with vidIQ, actually, the people that do all the kind of background tools for everything. And people ask, what is the most important thing to have when you start a YouTube or a Twitch or a TikTok or whatever you want to start? And it's love, passion for whatever the hell you're doing. So you say, yeah, you started 5 years ago making videos. You've had 5 years of loving this. If you hated this, you'd have quit way before now. The fact that you're still here, years and years and years on, shows there's some genuine passion and love. And if you put enough genuine passion and love out into whatever you make, people will find it. And that love is very obvious. And people will watch it because they can tell you actually care. You're not trying to trick them. You're not trying to game the system. You just love what you make. And that's very obvious in videos.
Yeah.
Bro, you nailed it on the head right there. Because anytime someone asks me, how do you become a YouTuber? I go, make what you watch, because you will not be able to make something you don't watch well. And if you can't enjoy your own content, how do you expect someone else to enjoy it?
The advice that I've always given people as well for starting up with like content and stuff is like, I just say, just throw a bunch of videos out there, do things that you enjoy, and then go back after a certain amount of time and just see what did well. Like that's what worked for me. I just uploaded random stuff on RuneScape. And then I was like, oh, people are really interested in the money-making series. People really like the time-gated stuff. Okay, let me explore that and see if that does better. And it did, you know?
That's Rixie's trademark right there.
That's my thing.
Yeah, money-making.
Yeah.
It's very, very accurate. I mean, in acting, in teaching, we would tend to refer that as what we call the shotgun method, which is if you shoot enough bullets, you will eventually hit something. And once you realize what you've got, then hyper-focus in on that and keep going with that. If you go to the YouTube channel Game Theory, hosted by MatPat, and you sort the videos by the oldest video they made, his oldest video is a theater video of him singing some of the songs from the musical Blood Brothers on stage. He's singing Shoes Upon the Table, which is a great musical song, but then he makes his very first game theory video after uploading some of his theater clips, and it takes off, and then he just hyper focuses in on that. The reason that I refuse to remove my old videos from YouTube, people say to me, take your old videos down, you're harming your algorithm presence. And I say, I appreciate your advice, but to me, having that kind of time capsule to show people, look, I didn't start good. My first video was like an unedited 3-hour playthrough of Dark Souls 3. It's terrible. And then I played all of the Command and Conquer games, all of the Cuphead games, all of Dead Space. I did a 100-day vlog of myself. I put up poems and art. I was just throwing art at the wall and seeing what stuck because it was a lovely repertoire for me to do. And then something happened and I thought, hang on, I can turn this into a job. Everyone that comes to YouTube now wants to be 3 years ahead of where they are without going through the 3 years of learning and experiencing, the experience that comes with doing that for 3 years.
It's a funny thing because I feel like in some respects, you and I probably have a slightly similar past in the sense of I too worked in warehouses and, I worked in factories, I worked dead-end jobs. I remember for me personally, when you work jobs that you dislike, you're just almost numb, like you're just watching the clock the entire time. It gives you a lot of time to think about what you'd rather be doing, right? And I'll never forget this one day I was working, I think it was like a 12-hour shift on a Sunday during the summer years ago. Boiling hot, I had to wear a hairnet, I had to have like a high-vis vest on, and I'm at the end of this machine, and because the managers weren't in on the weekend because it was overtime, I was able to watch Twitch on my phone. I won't name him, but I was watching a RuneScape content creator on my phone, and he was complaining about playing the game, right? And I was just sat there listening to this guy complain, and I was thinking, I would do anything to swap places with that guy right now. Like, that's where I want to be.
And you've hit a really important part there. It's very, very important that everyone that has found a level of success within the creative endeavors does understand that we are in very privileged positions. Now, there is that fine line to walk where we have lives that many people would look at and covet and want and be envious and jealous of. That's not to say that we don't still have struggles within those lives to take on. I mean, my social life is pretty much dead. I've just decided to not see anyone and totally create content. It's very difficult to complain about anything while also having a fantastic life that a lot of people would want to have. But what I think is very important, and I've noticed this, I don't know if you guys have noticed this as well, whenever I meet people who are in a position of success or privilege, who have struggled to get there, who have understood the, scrimping and saving to work out where your next meal is going to come from, and then struggling to pay the bills, and really trying to force your way through a less than ideal life, when you find success, you're very much appreciative of what you have all the time. I see a lot of people who have been given a great deal of success without having to struggle too hard for it at all, without understanding how privileged the position that they are in is. So I have been sat there streaming before for 7 or 8 hours, and part of my brain wants to go, oh man, just complain. This is the worst. And I think, no. Standing in a warehouse for 12 hours a day, moving boxes, sweating through all the pairs of clothes I owned, that was the worst. This is still pretty good by comparison. So I completely agree that when you find a level of success after having struggled to get it, you're generally much more appreciative of having it.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to your actual quality of video making, like you said to begin with, you were making old school RuneScape skits with a friend on a separate channel. So did you have any inspiration from other content creators? Like, how did you improve yourself when it came to the creation and the quality of your videos?
So when I was just making those skits, it's going to sound strange, but I didn't really watch much YouTube at all. I would watch TV and I would watch films, and I would want to try and replicate that and make that. I think a lot of my inspiration came from TV shows and films. I only really started to consume YouTube as almost a replacement for television and a replacement for films maybe a year or two after I started putting videos out onto it. But then I discovered the YouTube reviewers that I admired. I mean, one of my earliest and most consistent YouTubers that I admired for their content was ProJared, and ProJared made a lot of classic reviews on N64 games, PlayStation 1 games, NES games, SNES games. Slight side tangent, I actually messaged ProJared about a year or two ago, just saying, hey man, just want to say I really like your stuff. And now me and him actually talk quite often about making videos and working together, and he's a genuinely decent dude. And then we would look into things like Total Biscuit, who would really focus on game reviews. And then we had a brief run of a TV show in the UK called Gamesmaster that tried really hard to be hip and cool and down with the kids. That was, you could tell it was extremely corporate. But I think a lot of my inspirations for making videos, it's going to sound really strange, but when you spend a hell of a lot of time making the content, you don't have a lot of time to consume or watch other content. So I would only Google or search for videos that I really cared about. I wanted a review of this game, and I would find 0 punctuation. So I learned, okay, you don't need to have an hour-long review. You can be a really short 3-4 minute snappy comedy review. But then I also found people that would go super in-depth and write massive Wikipedia articles about stuff. And I tried to just combine those two together. To be honest, my actual video editing is extremely basic. I use a free program called Shotcut, and I record on the free version of OBS. I don't do anything complex in my videos. I just write down my experience, record it, and put it up, and then move on to the next. And I've seen a lot of YouTubers rise up in the last maybe 7 or 8 years who are doing the same thing, and I admire each and every one of them for putting the effort in to do it. Sometimes I'll see someone doing something and steal it. Like I stole ProJared's idea of always wearing a shirt. The reason I always wear the white shirt and the waistcoat, he was doing it. I'll take that. That works for him. Then I stole the titles from Team Triple Jump. Nice. And then the random out of 10 scores at the end, that was also taken from ProJared. A lot of the RuneScape stuff was taken from Settled. I just see these amazing content creators, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to steal what you're doing. Just have a British accent. Now it's mine.
Yeah.